Prenup is a very touchy subject to bring up with your sweetheart and is often viewed as taboo and something that could drive the romance away, right? Welcome to the Invest Diva movement, the place to be to take control of your financial future and to make your money work for you. In this episode, we talk about the importance of prenups and why women need to protect their assets. You heard that right. Normally we hear the prenup discussion being initiated by men, but my guest today argues that women should equally be the ones bringing it up, even if they don't have any money at the start of the relationship. I'll also reveal whether my husband and I signed a prenup before getting married. We'll get into some celebrity prenup gossip and discuss whether or not you can sign a prenup after you get married. My guest today is Naz Barouti, a lawyer, author, entrepreneur, media commentator, and public speaker. So basically right up the alley of the Invest Diva movement. She is known in the legal world as the estate planning guru. Naz has been featured on news outlets like Fox News Radio, Bloomberg TV, and USA Today for legal commentary discussing topics like death, divorce, criminal prosecution of high-profile figures. You can currently hear her in Los Angeles on 670 AM's Professional Business Hour. I'm your host, Kiana Danial, and my mission is to help 1 million women start investing on their own by the year 2025. So if there is a woman in your life who could benefit from taking control of her financial future, please spread the word. The best place to start is learn.investdiva.com/yes. We're going to cue in the intro and let's go! Welcome, Naz. Thank you so much for joining. You're officially my first Persian guest on the Invest Diva movement. So I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you so much, Kiana. I feel honored that I'm the first one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. I've been on a lot of Persian panels before, and we have so many amazing Persian women who are just rocking it. But when I think my producer, I don't know, it's the first time I was like, yes, of course. Like, what do you think? Like, yes. And like the topic, I'm like, yes, prenups. I know nothing about them. And if I had brought it up when I was getting married, we probably wouldn't have got married because there is so much emotions involved in how do you bring it up. Like, I feel like even if my husband had brought up prenups, I wouldn't have married him, even though I'm so savvy about finances. And so Naz, before we get into the how, I want to know the why. Why is it important to get a prenup? And do you think it's more important for women to get a prenup, or does it go both ways?
Well, I think it's important to get a prenup because if we look at the statistics, 50% of marriages end up in divorce. So it's inevitable that sometimes two people just don't work out. And when you're talking about finances and dividing stuff or money, when emotions are high, it can get really complicated. And I always say the biggest winners in a divorce are the attorneys. It's not who's going to take the most from the relationship. It's the attorney that's going to make the most money. And so it's important to have these conversations beforehand. And I actually believe that it preserves the romance instead of, kind of giving you that yucky feeling. But because there's always been a negative connotation attached to prenuptial agreements, we have to kind of change the dialogue of how we present it. And do I think more women need to get it than men? Well, the trend that I'm seeing is that women are getting married later in life. And because of that, they're working on their careers. And some of them have become the breadwinners in the relationship, or they make more. And so I think it's crucial that they have these conversations. The whole stereotype that it's a man that's kind of pushing this conversation has completely been eliminated. Most of my clients are women. They're coming into the relationships with more assets, and I think it's crucial to protect that. Now, is it split down the middle? Not always, but I think the person that has more to lose kind of initiates that conversation.
Right. And what exactly is a prenup? So let's say if we head into a marriage, we have the potential of making a lot of money, but we don't have that money assets. Does that require a prenup as well?
So in the United States, there are certain states that are community property states, meaning that California being one of them, and I'm a lawyer in California, the minute that you get married, everything you earn and purchase together is considered community property, meaning that if you separate, it gets split 50-50. So there's an incentive in certain states to make sure that you get a prenuptial agreement. The only thing prenuptial agreements cannot discuss is child support. So, when you enter into a marriage, you have assets beforehand, or you may not have any assets. The both of you may be completely broke. However, you may be working on a project. I see a lot of individuals that are in tech, they're broke. They have they don't even have a penny to their name, but they're working on an app, for example. And in the middle of the marriage, it can take off. And so sometimes they want to protect all the work that they've done up until that point. And if that was before marriage, they want to make sure if the marriage doesn't work out, they can walk away with what they've dedicated their life to. So it's not always that you have to be very, very wealthy to do a prenuptial agreement. And sometimes couples are coming into the relationship with inheritance, assets that their families have worked hard for, and they want to kind of continue that legacy and make sure that it stays within the family. So it's not always for rich people. And I think that there's that misconception that you have to be a millionaire or a celebrity to have a prenuptial agreement, and that's not the case.
That is very interesting to hear because, that was my misconception. Like when my husband and I got married, we were not where we are today. And I was like, all right, who cares? But both of us actually, our careers took off after we got married. And I'm like, well, it's probably going to go knock on wood, we're probably not going to get a divorce. But if we do, what would have a prenuptial agreement prevented us?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that a prenuptial agreement can prevent is the concept of alimony or spousal support.
Right.
So many people kind of want to clear that before entering into the partnership. And I have a different mentality when I talk about relationships. Now, whether that's for business or romantic, I always feel that you need to have an exit strategy, and that could be a little pessimistic, but I think that it's better to have a plan going into any situation. Now, that could have been prevented if that situation arises of how we're going to deal with alimony, or we're going to have a set stream of alimony. If you're going to stay at home and take care of kids, or I'm going to stay at home and put my career on the back burner, you want to make sure that you kind of protect yourself. It's not about this is mine, that's yours, and we're not going to touch it. I think that's another misconception women have, is that this is actually a tool where you can negotiate. And if you are going to put your career on hold, and since women outlive men, and we tend to be the caretakers of everyone in our lives, our aging parents, our children. And so if there was a scenario where we have to put our careers on the back burner and we're not earning an income, we need to negotiate that in our relationship, that if, everything hits the fan, I don't want to use a bad term.
You can do it, don't worry.
If shit hits the fan, then I need to make sure that I'm financially secure because I put my career on hold and I don't have a stream of income. So you have to be responsible for that. So it's negotiating that. Or if you do have a small asset before marriage and the value of that asset increases during the marriage, you kind of want to secure that as well. And we can go into other details of, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but most of the time I see cheating clauses with some celebrity cases that I've seen. There's been rumors that there's been porky clauses, meaning that if the woman has a baby and doesn't lose enough weight after the marriage, that can affect it. You name it, I've seen it. Or, drug problems, or gambling problems. And these are all red flags. If you have to go into a relationship and have these things kind of designated in an agreement, then maybe you need to re-examine the person that you're choosing to take on as a partner.
Oh my God, the woman one was what did I just hear? Oh my gosh.
There was a rumor that when Jessica Simpson was dating, I think a baseball player or football player, that there was a rumor he wanted to include a porky clause in the agreement. These things sometimes are,
And
It could be a
Jessica
rumor.
Simpson, she has a net worth of like, oh my gosh, like she has a brand name. She's got it together herself.
Well, did you hear when she did an interview? I think it was on the Dr. Oz show. She didn't have a prenup with Nick Lachey. And so during that divorce, she was making more money. And she said, I wish I had signed a prenup because it hurt how much money I had to give him. So it's not always, you're not being money hungry when you're talking about, you're protecting your assets. And it's not always the men that are giving money. That's why I'm saying more women are having these conversations.
So that I'm very glad that you brought up Jessica Simpson, because she is my example when I talk about making your money work for you. And I normally talk about, let's say, Jessica Simpson and let's say Ariana Grande. I was talking about them last year. I don't know what Ariana Grande is right now, but Jessica Simpson, I consider her wealthy because she doesn't have to sing another day of her life, but her money is working for her and she's compounding her brand name. Everything is just in place and she can just chill out and retire. I had no idea about her personal life. I should have dug into it.
And I think it's so important. And she's a great example of having different streams of income with her shoe brand, her clothing brand. I mean, everything that she's doing. And maybe at that time she had a lot of like puppy eye love, you know, when it came to Nick Lachey. I remember it was her first relationship. She saved herself before marriage. So her view and her lens of what relationships were, it was very naive. And I think that relationship taught her a lot. She had to pay a big chunk of her estate for that. But, you know, we live and learn.
And it's good to learn from other people's lessons and not actually experience it on our own. So how would you recommend bringing it up? Like, let's say there are a couple who they just got engaged during COVID and they're trying to get married and they're in love. How do you bring it up?
You know, I believe that you shouldn't wait until you're engaged to have these conversations. I think the topic of a prenuptial agreement is kind of up there when you're talking about, hey, do you want kids? What are your views on politics? You know, where do you want to live? These are all important conversations. And I think that we need to normalize having the conversation about money, because I think that we don't address that issue and it's kind of taboo and it's like tacky, but I'm sorry, money is a very important factor. And I know many people say money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy a lot of stuff that takes and eliminates the stress in a relationship. So that needs to be discussed in the dating and the courting period. And you can kind of gauge by someone's reaction. And I think you can use a celebrity case like, hey, today I was listening to a podcast, and did you know Jessica Simpson had to pay this much money to Nick Lachey? And just kind of feel, you know, view their body language, see what the reaction is, and you can kind of gauge how that person feels about that topic. And, you know, sometimes clients don't do prenuptial agreements. They get married and there's more at stake. I don't know if you remember when Jeff Bezos was separating from his wife, they didn't have a prenup. So she was entitled to everything, half of everything for Amazon. But when there were rumors that he was cheating, they went back to the drawing board and they did a postnup. And I think that she used that cheating as leverage. Like, look, I can take you to court and I can probably take more than 50%. So let's be civil about this and let's do a postnuptial agreement and figure it out so that the lawyers, again, are not the big winners.
That was exactly going to be my next question. Can we get a prenup post-marriage? And I had no idea that there is a postnup.
Yeah, there is a postnup, but again, it's more difficult to kind of force someone into that agreement when they already have you in that position of already being married. So it's a little tougher to negotiate that.
You have to be civil. It's interesting that Jeff Bezos is having an affair and at the same time he's being civil. All right.
He had no choice.
Good to know. Very interesting. So, and what I agree 100% with you. And it's interesting that I talk about the importance of having the money talk with your family, with your spouse, with your children. And personally for me, because I'm Persian, I don't know. I feel like among Persians, it's even a little bit more taboo talking about prenups. Like, I remember my sister was like, if any guy ever brings up prenups, like, that's a red flag, bye, next guy. So I was like, I was brought up with that kind of mentality. And even though I'm all about like money and making money and how important it is, prenup was the one thing that I have this belief system about that I just can't appear to, I don't know, to shake. But at the same time, when I think about my daughter, and yeah, I would want to protect her if she is getting married and if she has a potential. So it definitely is something that you must do. And so walk us through, like, what do you have to do in order to actually get it? Do you just sit down together, or do you have to get a lawyer?
Yeah. So just something very quickly about our cultural background. And I agree with you. Culturally, like, we're not very prone to having these conversations. However, life was very different for our parents, and being in another country and the stresses of life and the distractions and the options are very different when you kind of migrate to another country. So you have to develop with the changes in society and the environment. So I think that's really, really important. I think that the young generation, the professional generation is getting more comfortable having these conversations. So to start the process, I always think that the couple needs to communicate with each other first what their goal is, because what tends up happening is you have to have two separate attorneys. So one attorney is drafting and representing, let's say, one fiance, and then another attorney is going to review the work of that attorney that drafts the document and then explains it to the other fiance. But what ends up happening is that the attorney will draft something because they want to protect their client, and then gives it to the other attorney, and then the other attorney presents the information in a really like not sensitive way sometimes, and then that fiance is furious, and then it causes a fight. And then again, the lawyers are happy because now they're going to be going back and forth, and it's like billing on an hourly rate. So I think that the couple needs to go to the drawing board and discuss, how do we feel about spousal support? How do we feel about assets before marriage? How do we feel about, hey, whatever we earn together, we're going to split it 50-50. If you guys have a solid plan, like a foundation, then the lawyers can turn it into legal words. And I think it's better when the couple communicates with each other rather than, I'm going to communicate with my attorney, you communicate with your attorney, and let them talk. Because
it's like going through a divorce before even getting married.
Yeah. And so that never ends up being a good idea. So I always tell my client, look, I'm not going to do this until you communicate with your fiance what it is that you guys want.
That is very sound advice. And yeah, I mean, because otherwise it's like you're going to feel like you are going through all the stress of what if, and draw all the negativity before you're even married. And especially if you're engaged, that is the period that a lot of fights happen anyway.
Yeah, during planning the marriage, over cakes and stuff. So
oh my God. Yeah, that was stressful. And it's funny because like it has the image of being the honeymoon, or like, oh my God, we're engaged. I don't know, maybe it was just me. No, we had a lot of fights during engagement.
It's a stressful time. It's like your whole life is changing and you're merging two different worlds. So I think that you should also give yourself enough time. Don't wait a month before the wedding. I think that 6 months to a year should be put aside for this.
Right. I mean, tell that to a conservative Persian dad who's like, no, you're not allowed to be together within 6 months.
That's so funny.
But yeah, in the US, it totally makes sense. And I'm not even married to a Persian guy. So I'm married to an Australian guy. So let's clear that away.
Life is just on a different level when it's a non-Persian man. So
no, but they I know that if I had, my husband is half Italian, half Australian, and Italians are actually very similar in so many different things. With Persians, they're loud. They have like all these things.
They're like protective of their women.
All of it is like very, very similar. So yeah, so it's not all Persians, you guys. If any Italians out there, head over to the comment section. Let me know where you're from. Naz, so tell us a little bit about your background. Like, how did you end up in this specific field?
It's interesting because I was raised by a very hands-on father that kind of viewed me as a son. And, you know, we talk about our culture and how the parents are very protective and they're helicopter parents. My dad wasn't like that. I mean, at 17, when I was applying for colleges, he was like, I don't want you to like be close to home. I want you to go far away. So I grew up in Southern California, and then I went to Berkeley for college, and it was just a complete culture shock. I went to Catholic school my whole life. I was in suburbia. So to be dropped off in the middle of Berkeley, and I had never visited the campus before, it was a hard transition, but I raised myself very quickly and I was very independent. And then from college, I went to Minnesota for law school. And then that was another culture shock in itself. So I had been on my own, you know, since I was 17. And my dad always stressed the importance of being financially independent. I think that financial abuse is a huge, huge thing. When we talk about abuse in relationships, we think, you know, physical or mental, but I think financial keeps a lot of women and men in relationships that they're not happy. So that was like a huge thing for my dad to teach me how to be independent. And so after law school, I started my law firm right away. I didn't want to work for anybody else. I focused on estate planning and family law, and I just turned it into a really productive space for clients to come into and feel comfortable. And, you know, I've been doing that for 10 years. And then I decided to write a book for women. I call it the Legal Bible for Women, on different stages of life, how you can protect yourself based on cases that I had seen during my 10 years. And it's so hard dealing with attorneys. And I wanted to have a guide where it was easy to understand. There was no BS, and a woman could just pick it up and understand the concepts and apply it to their lives. So I've been a huge advocate for women in protecting them and in giving them the information. And it's a goal of mine to teach women like you do and other people, your other people in your audience, how to be smart about money, how money works, how to have different streams of income, how to protect it. And it's just been an amazing ride.
That is so awesome. I'm super glad that we were able to get you on the show. And you guys, I'm going to drop a link to Naz's book in the description area here. You definitely, I'm going to take a look at it, because there's so many different aspects to when it comes to money. And we talk about, like, the Invest Diva movement is all about taking control of your financial future. Women do outlive men. Like, you want to be prepared for whatever it is that is going to happen. Even if you don't get a divorce, something else could happen. We don't want to be pessimistic, but we want to be prepared so that we're not paralyzed with shock when shit hits the fan. Like, that is literally what we're trying to do. And the legal aspect of it is something that I've always struggled with. I came to America later in life, so it's been only 10 years. I have no idea about the legal aspects of things. So I'm super glad that you've been on it, and I'm super happy that we were able to get you to come on the show. Naz, if there is anything, like some final thoughts they could leave us with before we...
I think that, you know, I think what we have learned during the pandemic is that the number one killer in the United States, it's not necessarily COVID or cancer or heart disease. I think it's the lack of understanding about financial literacy and the importance of different streams of income. So I think that Americans in general, and if you look at our school system, they're not implementing what we need to learn. I mean, they will teach you how to find an angle of a triangle, but they won't teach you how the rule of 72 works or compound interest. And so Americans get on this hamster wheel of working, paying off bills, getting into debt. And it's just, they don't, like, before they know it, they're retired and they don't have a penny to their name, and they have to depend on Social Security or the government. So my takeaway always is, if you don't have a plan, the government has one for you on the financial level and the legal level, and you're not going to like it. So you have to be proactive and have these uncomfortable conversations and get a plan together, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Naz, for being on the show. You guys in the comments, go ahead in the comment section and let me know, will you be willing to ask for a prenup before getting married? Or if you're already married, for your children, will you be asking for a prenup from your from the suitors of your children. Drop a comment below. Thank you so much, Naz, for joining, guys. And you guys, I'll see you in the next episode of the Invest Diva Movement. Naz, before I let you go, we have a tradition with our guests that I ask for a silly face.
Oh, okay. A silly face.
3, 2, 1, do it.